Well, Ronald, thank you so much for helping my project. Can you say a little bit about yourself?
Yes, I can. A little bit about myself. How did that work?
Uh, awesome. So you have a sense of humor. That's good. You like coffee. You're at a coffee place. But I guess what drives you?
What drives me is I want to make myself wholly unimportant to the creation of my income. And you'll know when I've succeeded. You'll know how you'll know. You will never hear from me again. If you do, it'll be from an undisclosed location at my discretion. Okay.
I've known you off and on for almost 8 years now, and you do not strike me as somebody that thrives on anonymity.
You're not the first person that said that after I told them my goal, Nathan.
Yeah.
So, but no, what I do, my name is Ronald Earl Wilshire. If you want to know more about me, you can go to ronaldwilshire.com. We just reconnected after several years, me and Nathan, on a little app called Clubhouse. And I thought I'd come over and talk to him. And so what drives me, that was the question. I'm an investor in human capital. And I think there's so many people out there that are living far below what they're capable of. And so what I try to teach them is to take what they're already good at and use that to attract people to them that want to give them money. Because I call it intellectual capital. So that's what I do. I'll show you how to monetize your personality.
Now, this is something I've been kind of struggling with. I understand the appeal of like monetizing your personality and having like systems of income generation that don't depend upon your effort and you managing them and that type of stuff. But on the other side of it, I feel like in some ways money may be a distraction. Like, in order to actually achieve things in the world, it's about getting technology and resources and actually inventing. Like, you could give, Louis XIV billions of dollars and he won't land on the moon. That's just not going to happen. And I was just wondering what you thought about the idea of maybe money being a distraction from achieving your real life.
I see your point. And I think there is some, I don't know what the word I'm looking for, that makes sense to me a little. But here's what I've learned in my life as I've migrated deeper into the lifespan. There's been times in my life when I didn't have money. There's been times in my life when I had money.
Sure.
I'd a whole lot rather have money, okay? I'll tell you, I used to think if you reached 30, you should be shot, okay? You've outlived your usefulness, right? Now 50's looking real young. Why? Because I'm 57.
Oh, I agree. I'm 45. 50 is when it begins,
So when I start thinking about that, back in the day, and maybe Nathan, you can relate to this, it was the number one thing in my life from as early as I can almost remember was money, right? And then the second most important thing was time. And then the third most important thing was health, right? You didn't worry about your health, right? Now, where I find myself today, the number one thing is what? Health, right? If you don't have your health, you become a liability, right? Dead is dead, okay? You're not real productive when you're dead, right? Secondly is time. Why is time more important than money? You can always get more money, you can never replace your time.
Right.
So now money has slipped all the way to third. Isn't it funny how that happens?
Exactly.
Right? And so what I try to get, going back to what you said, I think it can be a distraction if you're just doing it for the money. But I always say, figure out what you would do in life, even if you didn't get paid for it. You love it so much, it's your passion, and then figure out how to get somebody to pay you for it. Right?
Right.
And now, because we have access, we talked about access through these little devices, right? You can, no matter what you're selling, there's somebody out there that'll buy. And now we have the systems in place to get it, don't we? Used to, we didn't. I mean, think about what Uber did. They didn't reinvent taxis.
Right.
They didn't reinvent cars.
They reinvented their relationship.
Their relationship, but here's the thing. What they did is they had a way to track it.
Right.
If you didn't have a way to track it, that still wouldn't have worked, would it? So now we can track everything, right? And so I tell people, Figure out, I think everybody's born with a certain amount of talent. What your job and part of your destiny is to figure out what that talent is and get passionate enough about it. You spend enough time with it to turn it into a skill, right?
Sure.
And if you do, now we have access, we talked about this earlier, right? To over 4 billion people. And so now there's no capital barrier, there's no gatekeepers. That's why you see 13-year-old kids down the street here making 30 million a year on YouTube opening toys, right? And it's not magic. Business is not magic. That didn't just happen, right? It's very predictable. But we talked earlier though, I always said, show up, stay in touch. Show up, stay in touch. Most people don't show up.
Yep.
Of the people that do show up, most of them don't stay in touch.
Absolutely.
Right? So if you show up and stay in touch, you have not nearly as much competition as you think, because most people aren't doing it.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
And we talked about earlier about if you really knew how little people think about you, you'd be far less inclined to care what they think about you.
Because they don't think about you.
They don't think about you. They're thinking about themselves, which is okay, right? I mean, if you're, God forbid, on an airplane and it starts going down into the ocean, the mask comes out. What do you do with that mask? Go give it to the guy three seats down?
Put your mask
Put
on
your mask
first.
on, right?
Yeah.
And so I've always said this, people say, so well, it's better to give than to receive. Not necessarily, because I'm going to tell you a little secret. If you're going to give, you got to have first.
To give, right.
So I don't see a lot of dead people walking around feeding hungry people, right? You got to feed yourself first, right?
Yeah.
And then you're in a better position to help other people. So the only reason why I will be a multi-billionaire and maybe the first trillionaire, because there's going to be trillionaires, because we got access
Well, the
now.
way inflation's about to kick up, I think a lot more of us than you think.
If we leave stagflation and inflation out of it. But anyway, why is it? Because there's two things happening in the world. Everybody's coming up, right, and being more affluent. But even in that wouldn't be that big a deal to me and you. But what is the big deal now? We have access to those people, right? And so now we have a way to track it and to start the conversation, right? And so that's basically what I do. Did that answer your question?
No, it's great. So that was drives you, unlocking people's
Potential.
monetary potential.
Right, because you have a lot of it in you, right? And I can give you example after example of people I've worked with that didn't think, man, this I'm too shy, or I'm this, or I don't have that. You have more than you think, right? So my deal is just to show you how to get it and use it.
But I kind of along that same lines, I started reading The Fountainhead by Ayn Rand yesterday, and Rourke is talking to his professor about, or the dean, about how he plans to have clients to build buildings, not build buildings to have clients.
Right.
So he's going to focus on things like, what are you talking about?
It's a different perspective, right? Well, see, I've always said, if you show up with no agenda, there's two good things that can happen. Number one, you can't screw up, right? Number two, you freak everybody out, right? Because everybody's always in that selling mode, right?
Sure.
You remember we talked about this. I'll put a little plug in from my book. Attract and engage is better than chase and convince. Miscellaneous ramblings from a slightly deranged mind. Everybody out there, they live their life in the reactive mode. They're always reacting to everything.
Sure.
They're in that chase mode, right? Trying to convince. Get out of that reaction mode, get into the proactive mode, get into the attract and engage.
Right.
So how do you attract? You go out there and develop the courage to be who you are. That's how you attract, right? Because attraction is not a choice. Remember that, attraction is not a choice. So if you're out there being who you are, you're going to automatically attract the people that you want in your life, either as customers or clients, or as people that'll just talk about you.
Yeah.
Right? Because I have in my book, never underestimate the attraction power of the coolness factor. Right? If you're cool, there's a lot of people that just want to know you just so they can tell their friends they know you. And they might tell somebody that will come and give you a very large check just because they're talking about you.
And the thing though is, it's not something you want to force either.
Exactly.
Trying to be cool whenever you're not can be
It's a
exhausting.
great point. It's a great point, Nathan, because this used to happen with me and the person we were talking about earlier. Now, this being recorded, we don't want to
Sure. Yeah.
But people used to come up to me and go, Ronnie, when I grow up, I want to be just like you. I'm like, no, you would suck as me. I've seen it, and it's very painful, okay? Do not try to be me, all right? Don't be like me, be like you, right? So I'm me for me, number one, and two, I'm me as an example to you. So you can be you, because you can be just as good a you as I can be a me, right? Even the framers of our Constitution, what they say, we hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created pretty much alike. No, we're all equal and at the start and in God's eyes, right? Now we have different talents, we have different things we can do, so go out and find that, right? My brother used to always say, do what you gotta do until you don't have to do it anymore, right? I think one of the big problems in society is deference and the inability to delay gratification. We want everything and we want it right now, right?
Yeah.
And deference, what is that? Nathan, it's not my fault the way I am. It's my parents. It's the economy.
And now you got to accept it. It doesn't matter if it's their fault.
Exactly.
You're you. That's irrelevant. They're not going to come here and fix me. They had their chance and it didn't work. Why would I? They obviously failed. Why would I want them to come here and fix it now?
I'll try it again. So when you start understanding that, once you take responsibility for your actions, you know what you do that day? You reclaim all your power.
Yeah.
And when you've got all your power, what can you do?
Anything you
just about anything. But you focus on what you're good at. Most life coaches, they try to get you good at what you're not good at. You know what I do as a consultant? I say, what do you like to do? What are you good at?
Sure.
Let's build everything around that. Right?
And you get other people to fill in the gaps of stuff you're not good at.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right? I used to say, we just had that conversation earlier. All I would do is drive and show up and talk.
Yeah.
She did everything else. That's a great partnership, right?
Exactly.
Back when I was sold houses, new homes, I didn't clean my pool. I didn't wash my cars. I didn't mow my lawn. Do you know what I spent 99% of my time doing when I was at work? Right. Hey, you want to buy a house? Hey, you want to buy a house?
Exactly.
I had a full-time assistant that did everything else.
Sure.
So here's another little piece of bonus material for you. Go find something that you're really good at and spend 99% of your time doing that. And if you screw up everything else, you're probably still gonna make a lot of money, right?
Be the Schindler, not the accountant.
There you go. So, and there's so many ways, but the other thing I said, and I said this in my last class, you've got to find a way to introduce leverage into your life. If you don't introduce leverage into your life, it's the number one thing that you've got to have to create wealth. If you don't introduce leverage, if you don't find a way to make money while you sleep, you are fated to die working. It's just how it is. You got to have leverage, right? So now, because of the systems, because of everything, look what we're doing right here.
I know.
This would have not even been, I remember buying my son when he was like 9 or 10, so this ain't been that long ago. We bought him a little recorder, and all it was a little, and it was a state of the art, and it was $1,200. And that thing probably, you probably look at film in it now or video, and you probably couldn't even see, it's so pixelated, but it was $1,200 at the time, right? Look at what we're doing. So I have another, in my book, it says, ignorance is still an option, but it's no longer a valid excuse.
That's true. Yeah, you can learn anything you're willing to go and find out.
Anything you want and ask people because the knowledge is there, see? So that's how you, whatever you want to do, you can go find it from somebody, right?
Right.
But the other thing is, I think we don't give ourselves enough credit. Because we assume if we know it, everybody else knows it.
Oh, exactly. And we assume that if we're good at it, everybody else is good at it. And that is a strategic
thing.
It's a
huge mistake. And I forget what, there's actually a term in clinical psychology for that. I need to remember it. It's something syndrome.
You also assume that if you have trouble with it, everybody else must be having trouble with it too.
But it ain't true.
Ain't true.
It works the
other way also.
That's a good point, right? And so, you used to always say when, if I don't know the answer, I would ask that person right now. I don't know the answer, I just ask her, right?
Sure. Now you ask Google.
Now I ask whoever's, but that's another thing I always say. And I put this out the other day in my texting list. And if you want to be on it, just let me know. If you're cool, I'll let you on it. Cool people only. Is no is a complete sentence.
We already know you're cool. You're watching this. So.
There you go. If you know Nathan.
Look below, and he'll get you hooked up.
But what it is, it's my way that I stay in contact with people and keep my name and face in front of people. It's really cool. Anyway, no is a complete sentence, and any explanation on your part is purely optional, right? And the other thing is, if you don't know the answer, I don't know is a perfectly intelligent and legitimate answer, right? But one of the big things that people do, especially in sales, I work with a lot of real estate agents and a lot of people in sales, is the sales manager will tell you, well, if you don't know the answer, what do you say? Well, I'll find out. I think that's a huge mistake. Don't ever say that.
Because now you just accept a whole bunch of work.
Exactly. Unnecessary. Man, you're pretty smart. I knew the reason I liked you.
Well, I know because I'm that guy. I'm exhausted.
So what
I'm
you
looking
do,
for a way to get out of
this
this.
is what you do, and I'm going to tell you. You know, Nathan, that's a great answer. Great question. I don't know the answer, but if it's important to you, I'll find out. Do you know what about 98 or 99% of the people respond to that?
No, that's okay.
That's not that big a deal. Don't worry about it. Okay. What just happened to your credibility? Just shot up, right?
And your workload just
and
went
your
down.
workload went way down, right? Because you're not off chasing. Because really, what are they trying to do? They're just trying to figure out if they like you, right?
Yeah.
I mean, people all the
Or
time.
you're giving it for free. You know, it's just like those little mints on the restaurant.
Right.
You're like, I don't want a mint, but you know, I better get it. Losing value here.
Well, the fear of loss is always greater than the desire for gain, right?
Yeah.
So that's the other thing. And I tell you, when I talk about learning about people, here's the thing that I think will make me a multi-billionaire and hopefully the first trillionaire in the history of the world. This principle. And it's based on how we all think, right? Boy meets girl, boy likes girl. What does girl do? Girl runs. Who has all the power?
The girl.
The girl. Now, us little boys are pretty persistent, right? Plus, most women, they don't realize the power they have over the opposite sex, right? If you find one of those, leave them alone. They'll never find your body. They're very dangerous, okay? But most little boys were pretty persistent. And what does the little girl do? Oh, I like this little boy.
Oh, exactly.
Now-
I mean, it's the cool guy who doesn't seem to like anybody. That seems to have all the people.
So what she does, she likes me now. He takes off running. Who has all the power now?
Yeah, he
The
does.
boys.
Yeah.
Okay. So here's what you have to learn. This is what I think will make me more money than my descendants will spend. We want what we can't have. If we can have it, we don't want it.
Exactly.
We're hardwired that way.
And that's
right?
why the grass is always greener on the other side.
Right.
I mean, it's the same
And
psychology.
I have it in my book. Translucent is much more attractive than transparent.
Yes. You want to have, because you can make it up with your mind, right?
Okay, and I'll give you the perfect example. You'll love this, Nathan. It's in my book.
Sure.
It's like, darling, keep all that covered up because my imagination can do way more for you than anything you can ever show me. And most people don't get that, do they?
Yeah.
Right? It's like, let me use my imagination on it, right? Because if you show me everything, it's
Well,
like,
and plus you're going to imagine what you want.
and it's very powerful, right? And so, and it creates that desire and that attraction, right? Remember, attraction's not a choice. Attraction's not a choice, right? So when you start understanding how that works, so now what you do is you set up your system based on your personality that offers value. Added value plus pure intent equals divine prosperity, right? That's my ultimate equation.
Okay, let's go over it again.
Added value plus
divine intent,
pure intent
pure intent,
equals divine prosperity.
divine prosperity.
So what does that mean? I'm going to go out and add value to somebody's life.
Sure.
And I'm not worried about whether I get paid up front for it or not, right?
Right.
If I add value to somebody's life, what am I eventually going to get back? Value. It's a
Right.
universal law as strong as gravity or electricity, right?
Yeah.
So I added value and I had pure intent. I didn't really have an agenda, right? That's going to equal divine prosperity, right? And if you do that, it's called confidence, right? Confidence is very attractive. It has nothing to do with arrogance.
I'm going to make it.
Huh?
I'm going to make it. It's
Right.
going to happen.
Well, but you don't ask God to guide your path unless you're willing to move your feet, right? You got to do something, right? But I always say confidence is very attractive. It has nothing to do with arrogance or disrespect. It has everything to do with knowing who you are and why you're here, right? See, I study successful people. Success leaves clues, right? That leaves clues. So you're not old enough to remember this probably, Nathan, but there was this dude that used to play basketball. His name was Michael Jordan.
I do.
So they're in the huddle, so play along with me a second,
Okay.
They're in the huddle. The Bulls are behind by 2 points. There's 9 seconds left in the game. What is Michael Jordan saying to Coach Doug Collins in that huddle? What is he asking him?
Who's going to pass me the ball?
Give me the ball.
Give me the ball. Yeah.
What's he telling him, right? So that's confidence, right? So if you go and watch that Nike, it's a commercial, but it's really just him talking. I've been trusted to take the winning shot 38 times in my life, and I missed. And he talks about all the times he's failed in his life. And he says, I've failed over and over and over. And he says, and that is why I win. See?
You know the difference between a expert and an amateur?
Mm-mm.
The expert has failed more times than the amateur has even tried.
Yeah. See, it's kind of like, you've probably heard this. They asked Thomas Edison, a lady was asking him one time, well, Mr. Edison, you have failed over 1,100 times in your attempts to invent the incandescent bulb. And he says, no, ma'am, I beg your pardon. He said, I have successfully found out over 1,100 times how it would not work.
Yeah.
So it's all in your perspective, isn't it?
Exactly.
See? So when you understand that, right, because you have something good to offer, right? Because there's people out there that will only be moved by your message, right? I call it legacy is the new currency. Tell me your story. What's your story? How'd you get here, right?
So these two shoe salesmen go to Africa, and they telegraph back home. You know, one says, forget it, they don't wear shoes here, there's no market. And the other one says, they don't wear shoes here, the entire market's ours.
See, it's all perspective, isn't
Exactly.
it, right? So I'll tell a real quick story about my son, and it's why it's so important to detach yourself emotionally from the process, right? He's like, I want to say he's 6 or 7. Do you remember Scout Fair tickets back in the day? Scout Fair tickets.
No.
These little scouts, they would sell Scout Fair tickets for the fair.
Oh, for the Scout Fair.
Yeah.
When was the last time they had a Scout Fair?
Long time ago.
Okay.
He's 30-something now. He was like 6 or 7. So he wanted to win a bicycle.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, Jake, I'm going to tell you how to win a bicycle, but you got to listen to me. Now, what are kids generally pretty good at? They'll do what you tell them up to a certain age, right?
Yeah.
That
was really young, I think.
Yeah. I said, this is how you win a bicycle. I said, we're going to go down to Randall's, because it's been a while, and I'm going to stay here an hour. So here's your goal, son. And he's like 6 or 7 years old, maybe 8 or 9. I don't remember. He's very young. I said, in this next hour, your goal is to go up to as many people as possible and say, hello, my name is Jacob. Would you like to buy a Scout Fair ticket? If they say yes, you sell them one. If they say no, don't even let them finish that one-word syllable till you're on to the next person, okay? He won 2 bikes, okay? Because he understood, he listened to me, it's about the numbers, right? Detach yourself emotionally. No, man, that's good. I need to know that right up front,
Exactly.
right?
A slow no is worse than...
Exactly. Slow no. I like that, a slow no. So I always tell people, I try to disqualify people, right? I was selling one of my books, or I actually wasn't selling, I just carry them as a great conversation starter, right? So I'm in doing a session with a good friend of mine, super good guy. And the lady across there, she looks, she goes, is that your book? I says, it has my name on it, don't it? And she picks it up and starts looking. And she goes, how much is it? I said, it's $20. If you get it on Amazon, it's $25, plus you pay shipping, plus you don't get an autograph. She goes, $20? I'm like, give me that book. You can't afford my book. I've never even seen this lady before. What did she do? Oh, yes, I can. Here's $20. I said, you want me an autograph for you? So remember the whole goal, my whole point here is we want what we can't have.
Sure.
But most people are out in the desperate mode. We're hardwired to resist desperate, anything to do with desperate. We're hardwired to resist it. Ask any female. They can smell desperation from 14 miles away.
Or any manager looking to fill a position.
Exactly.
You know, you want
Another
the guy
great
that
point.
other people want.
I'll tell you what happened real quick, and I talked to this lady not too long ago. When I used to sell homes, I was doing really well at a certain builder I was with. Well, there was another builder I wanted to get on with, and the guy that I was working with says, man, you're not going to get on over there because somebody has to die. I said, watch me. It took me almost 5 years, but I kept calling them and calling them and calling them and calling. Most of the time, they never even returned my call, but finally, get an interview. I walk in there, meet the lady, super nice lady. After it's over, I said, well, my goal is to come in and I'm going to take this person's place and this person's place. I want to be number 1. Well, I didn't accept the job because I was making really good money. It just didn't feel right. So she said, well, I understand, Ronnie, I understand, but you mind if I stay in touch with you? I said, no, I don't mind. You keep in mind, these are people that wouldn't even call me back. Now she wants to stay in touch with me.
Sure.
She said, I've got this other thing coming open in about 30 to 60 days. Could I call you and maybe you'd look at that? I said, sure, yeah, you can call me. My phone rings, and I'm almost like 30 days later, whatever. It wasn't very long. And so I called up the mother of my son who I was with at the time, and I said, I better go and talk to this lady. I may never live long enough for this company to offer me a third job, right? We get there, talked for 30 minutes or so, and I said, so do I have the job? And she goes, yeah, if you want it. I said, okay. I said, I have to tell you something. You remember when I met you 30 days ago or whenever it was, I told you I'm going to come in and take so-and-so's job? Well, I didn't tell you. Also, after I do that, become number one, I'm coming in to take your job, and then I'm going to Tahiti. You know what she told me? Well, welcome aboard. I could use the help. She was the coolest manager that I ever worked for. How many managers would have been intimidated?
I don't know.
She just like, I could use the help. Welcome aboard. So my point in all this is, walk in like you own the place, man.
Sure.
Never settle for second best. We need those kind of people, don't we? Right? Now, does this mean that I have everything worked out? No. Like I told you earlier, if I did, and if I'd have saved all my money made back, I wouldn't be sitting there doing this interview. Well, I'd probably be up in the mountains somewhere, right?
We just wouldn't be doing the interview here.
Exactly.
We would still be
Would be in the mountains.
I would still be able to get in touch with you.
Probably. Well, that list is kind of short, Nathan, so you're going to have to do some finagling to get on that list, okay? But no, you think about it. What is success to people? There's a lot of different definitions, but you know what success to me is? I've simplified it down. Remember, simplify people's life, they'll give you money. To me, success is being able to spend your time ever how you want to spend it.
Sure.
That's success. Now, is there a financial component? Absolutely. But if you're out doing what you want to do, and now with all the, we're no longer a geographic prisoner, right?
Sure.
And I think this scamdemic has taught us we don't need those buildings, do we? Church building, work building, school building, we can be mobile, right?
Sure.
And so now you can go out and sell your intellectual capital to the highest bidder. And you don't have to go to college, get all this debt, and then go sell your knowledge to an employer who
Right.
gives you a little bit for it, then sells it to the end user. You can sell your intellectual capital directly to the end user.
And that's another thing is whenever you're looking for talent online, you don't say, hey, where'd you go to school? What certificate you say? You say, show me your portfolio. Show me
what have you done?
what you've done, right?
Isn't that what it's supposed to be?
Yeah.
I mean, the resume has always had this good thing. This guy told me, they can always, they have all this artificial criteria that they judge you by.
Well,
work
they're trying
history.
to rule out people, right?
Right. Well, but here's the thing. He said they've never found a test that would accurately judge the size of the human heart, right? Because I'm telling you, I was always already making really good money from that other new home sales company. But the main reason I wanted to go to the other one is because the guy I was working with said, you'll never get on there.
Yeah, you're like, I'm going to show him.
So what I did, this was back before phones, right? Well, I had a phone, but we didn't really use it for a camera. But I had this really nice digital camera. So I took a picture of my name tag and emailed it to him. That's all I did. He's like, you're not coming in? I'm like, I quit, man. I'm going to this other place. And he looked at this and goes,
Oh, you got on. He's like, who died?
So the whole point in all this, though, Nathan, is I guess we could say how me and you met again on this clubhouse.
Sure.
So it's the first time I've ever signed up for an app and gave them access to my phone numbers. And
Yeah.
I think I kind of did it. They kind of like didn't make it real clear, or I probably still wouldn't have done it. But I gave them all access, and then when I saw you on there, I'm like, oh, Nathan, I ain't talked to him in a while.
And you're the only person I've had any interaction with on Clubhouse.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Well, but
the only reason I did that was because I was on this podcast for this Celestial Citizen talking about my project.
I was on there.
On Celestial Citizen?
Well, I wasn't on the podcast, but I saw her with a group because I remember that name.
Yeah, Britt Atkins.
Yes.
Yeah. And she's doing stuff on Clubhouse, and that's the only reason I joined. So.
And now
we're connected.
it comes to here.
I know.
Right? So remember, I told you. Now, have we covered this about showing up, staying in touch?
A little bit, yeah.
So it bears repeating. So if you want to build your business, if you want to leverage your time, if you want to create wealth, you must have a system that you can stay in touch.
Right.
Show up, stay in touch. Most people don't show up, and of the people that do show up, most of them don't stay in touch. So if you're doing those two things, you don't have nearly as much competition as you think.
Oh, exactly.
And how do I know this? Think about the last networking event or online thing, and
Sure.
how many of those people stayed in contact with you?
Almost zero.
none.
I think zero. I mean, that's
think
like
zero.
Yeah.
So here's the thing. When you understand that, the goal, though, is to keep that conversation going as long as possible. Because the longer you keep that conversation going, right? The more chance they have of what? Either buying something from you, or just as good a lot of times, talking about you, right? Referrals. Talk about, give them something to talk about, right?
Yeah.
So I always say, and I was saying this to a guy at, I have an online business where I show people how to register their names as domains, and I've got like 500 or 600 people in that account. And I was talking to this guy at the domain company, and he's like, man, we were talking about this. He's like, you just made my day. We were talking, and I told him about my book and all this, and he looks me up. But I said, the whole key to this whole thing is to keep that conversation going, but don't be in the sales mode, right?
Sure.
So here's the mindset that I teach. Now, Nathan, I know you probably won't have to pretend here, but most people have to pretend, okay? You got $150 million invested. Mm-hmm. You're making about $600,000 a month, whether you get out of bed or not.
Yeah.
Okay. Are you going to go out and try to sell anything to anybody?
No.
Probably not. You're probably going to realize a couple of things. Number one, I don't know how to break this to you, brother, but you're soon going to be dead. Okay.
Sure.
Somebody else is going to use this spot, right? I have on my book, it says, in the age-old battle between humans and dirt, the dirt
wins.
always wins.
Sure.
Right? And so the other thing is, I got to go out and add some value to somebody's life. If I add value, we talked about it earlier, what am I going to get back? I'm going to get back value, right? So when you start understanding that, right, it kind of helps you relax. Like Steve Jobs said, knowing that you're going to die is the best way I know of avoiding the trap of thinking you have something to lose. Mm-hmm. Man, death is a destination we all share, right?
Right.
So when you get that, and I'm okay with that, right? Go and watch Andy Andrews' Butterfly Effect. It's a great video, and it talks about, if it's your time, you're going to go. If it's not your time, nothing's going to take you, right? And so your whole goal is to keep that conversation going and give people something to talk about and have that mindset. Walk in like you own the place. I walked in Panera, it's been 3 months ago, walked up, got me something to eat, came back, I put my books down on the table, and I went over and there's this really nice looking, she wasn't a blonde, so I'm generally a white, tight, and skinny, but she was a really nice looking brunette, young girl, and she said, oh, I love the title of your book. And so we got to talking, and of course she bought one, and she's showing me how to get an assistant from, a virtual assistant from the Philippines. Anyway, she goes, man, I just noticed when you walked in, man, you just had that presence, right? Always walk in like you own the place.
Sure.
Never settle for second best. Think about, Nathan, if you would have owned this place, you really own this, would you have walked in a little different than you walked in?
Yeah, I'd probably be checking out.
Looking at things. You'd probably go up and greet the people that you had working for you, right?
Maybe come around and say,
hello,
Ronald, how's the
coffee?
coffee? Is everything okay?
Think about this. That's how I do. I walk in, man, and I talk to everybody, right?
Sure.
Because you never know what conversation you're going to start that's going to lead you to like unbelievable things, right? Because it all starts with that conversation, right? And so, but like I say, so here's the point of that whole story. How many people do you know that really know how much money you make? You may have $150 million invested. I don't know, right? I mean, I sold a house to a guy one time that I'm dressed better than he was. I think my shirt's a little fancier, but he had jeans, nice boots, and a cap, t-shirt. Make a long story short, about the most expensive house I have, and I'm over talking to him after he bought it. No, this was when he was buying it. His wife was filling out the little form, and it says annual combined income. She looks at it, she goes, honey, how much money did we make last year? He goes, last year or this year? This has probably been 2005, so 15 years ago. He said, last year we made about $4 million. He said, this year we'll probably do 8 or 9 million. You'd have never known it, right?
Sure.
So you never know who you're talking to, what that can lead once you start that conversation, right? Start conversations. If you're not making the money you want to make, you're not starting enough conversations. Start more conversations. So I think what you're doing with these interviews is brilliant. Did I mention that? I should have said that earlier.
And I'm glad we got it on tape.
For posterity's sake.
Now I can say endorsed by Ronald, Used to, my big claim to fame was, hey, I made the Houston Chronicle, but now I can.
Well, did I tell you my quick story about Houston Chronicle? I knew a guy, David Bamber, super cool dude. He goes, hey, I met somebody who wants to do an article on you in the Chronicle. This has probably been 10, 12 years ago. I said, Houston Chronicle? I'm like, people still read that newspaper? I gave up newspapers like 57 years ago. Anyway, so she did an article on me, and I still have customers to this day that are paying me from that article.
Wow.
Isn't that crazy?
It's something.
So,
But once they see you in print, it's immediate credibility.
Well, and so that's why we're talking about, and I was explaining this on a session I was doing the other day. It's the same thing now with all the new media, right? How do you go these YouTube people and these people online? They're celebrities. These Instagram people that put something out and they get $1,200,000 for every post, right? It's because they have influence. See, I have in my book, return on influence is the new ROI, right? So they're called influencers, right? So how do you influence people? What you're doing right here, man.
Yeah.
This is excellent. See? And now you start building that tribe, right? And that tribe follows you, right? And so you never know what's going to happen, do you? But you're constantly staying in touch, adding value to their life, right? And you never know what can happen. So anyway, do you have any other questions for me, Mr. Nathan Price?
Yeah, a few. Did you know that NASA is planning to send people to the moon in 2024?
Yes, I do. And I was going to ask you, is that still on, considering all the changes we went through in D.C., is that still on?
So the Biden administration, through their press secretary, the White House press secretary, said that they're still supportive of Artemis, the program that NASA has to send people to the moon. I think Artemis 1 is supposed to be an uncrewed test flight around the moon. Artemis 2 is going to be send 4 astronauts around the moon, one of which is Canadian, who incidentally, Canada, in order to get that seat, is contributing a Canadian robotic arm to the Lunar Gateway, which is the space station around the moon. So the joke is Canada had to give an arm to send an astronaut. No leg, though. Just
no, I've always been intrigued with space travel. And we talked a little bit about this earlier, but I think it's the next frontier of exploration. And so which I was going to ask you, how does Elon Musk and all what he's doing fit into this? Is it?
Yeah, it's a little bit of. So the relationship between Elon Musk and NASA is very complex. On one simple level, Elon is a contractor. SpaceX is a contractor of NASA that provides a number of services to NASA, such as delivery of supplies to the International Space Station and also transportation of stuff from the International Space Station down. They also transport astronauts now to the International Space Station.
Wow. I didn't know that.
2011, the shuttle took its last flight. Since then, the Russians have been sending the U.S. astronauts back and forth, and depending upon them. As of last June, we now have our capability again to send astronauts from the U.S. to the space station and back. But NASA did this a little bit differently. Instead of having SpaceX build a rocket like they would Boeing or Lockheed Martin, they said, we want you to go and develop a service, and we're going to be customers of yours, but you go out and get other customers. And they've done that. They're going to have a private mission to the International Space Station. They're going to have a private space flight for 4 people that is just, in orbit around the Earth. And they're also sending a group of people in 2023 around the moon and back.
I'm very, very intrigued and enamored with all that. And I would probably be, Nathan, a guy that would volunteer to take a ride. This is how I am.
That's awesome.
And I think it's cool what you're doing, if I didn't mention that before.
Yeah. So I guess, last time I went to the moon is 1972. What do you think about us going back?
I think it's a great idea, and I think we should do it, and I think we should set the precedent and do it first. And be the first that colonizes whatever we're going to colonize, Mars or whatever. Because if we don't do it, somebody else is going to do it, right?
Yeah. But what if nobody did it? Would you consider that to be still worthwhile that we did it?
Besides us?
I mean, what if...
If nobody else did it, you mean?
There's one argument that says if we do it before anybody else does it, that's important, right? But if you keep the other guy from doing it, then you don't have to worry about that.
Like eliminate your competition?
There's that, yeah.
No, I don't think we should do that. I think competition is good. That's what the free enterprise system is built on, right? So I think I'm all for doing whatever we've got to do it. I think it's cool. I think it's amazing. It's new stuff. That's how your brain expands, by learning new stuff. And, Zig Ziglar said you'll be the same person a year from now that you are today, but for 2 things. Do you remember the 2 things?
You'll be a year closer to death? No?
The people you meet and the books you read.
And the people you meet in okay.
You'll be the same person except for those two things. So that's my whole deal is start conversations, start more conversations, because you never know. We were talking earlier about the conversation how we met,
right?
Like 10 years, 11 years ago.
Yeah, 2013, I think it would have been. 2013, maybe 2012 or 2011.
So 8 years ago, 9 years ago, yeah.
It might have been 10,
yeah.
Actually 2011 might have been it, because I'm thinking about the time that I got out of real estate, which had been our last coffee, but I think we had like a year and a half before that.
Yeah, so that's that conversation we started and how we kind of stayed in contact really kind of passively.
Sure.
But it led to us talking again.
And plus you're a memorable guy.
Well, thank you.
People come across here and like, oh, Ronald.
Well, I always say, I have in my book, I really don't care what you say about me, just as long as you say something.
Just as long as you're
talk
talking.
about me. Talk about me, right? So I know the truth. It ain't pretty sometimes, but so yeah. Did that answer your question? I think we should do it full force.
Awesome. Now, 500 years ago, Christopher Columbus coming from Europe to North America. That began, this big period of immigration of Europeans into North and South America. And we've had all this amazing development worldwide since that time. If you look out 500 years in the future, where do you think we would have gone?
Well, I'll be 557.
Yep.
So.
You
and
may,
I may still
you may
be here.
I know. You may be.
I'm telling you, most people don't think about that, do they?
Yeah.
Because my goal is to live to be 151, because that equals 7. 5 plus 1 plus 1. But yeah, maybe 500. I really, honestly, because I have a very short attention span, that may be surprising to you, Nathan. But I've never really considered that far in advance, because that's going to be what, 25, 21?
Yeah, 25, 21.
See how I did that?
Yeah, I did great.
I didn't pay a lot of attention in map class, but I occasionally was awake. I don't know. I think it's... So tell me the question again. Did I answer the question?
Well, I mean...
500 years out, what?
In 25, 21, do you think there's people humans who have never ever been on Earth?
Yes, I do. Because I think about, the universe is expanding geometrically in all directions at the speed of light, which is faster than a New York minute and a nanosecond, okay? It's faster than that, right? So how could I think that we're the only humans? And now we got all this talk of these UFOs and what they're releasing. So yeah, I think there is. Yeah, there probably is.
So if it was safe and affordable, would you go to space?
Absolutely. I think I answered that.
Yeah, you did.
I would volunteer in a New York minute.
But would you pay?
Would I pay to do it? Yes. Hopefully by then I'll be the world's first trillionaire and I can take you with me.
Some people say the first trillionaire is going to do asteroid mining.
Like Bitcoin.
Wow.
But in space. No,
Well, actually, that's not so crazy, right? Because, solar power, unlimited, put your computational equipment up there and have it run for free.
I'm with you. And it's like the dude that came on Shark Tank and he had these things in the ocean that it literally was like a centrifugal force machine, right? That it ran on its own just from the power of the ocean. And it created all this power. So no, I mean, think about this. I've always said this, if you simplify people's life, they'll give you money. So I think in very simple terms. So one of the things that I think God endowed me with was the ability to simplify things. So if you go back and think about the Wright brothers, nobody in their right mind, no pun intended, except them two.
Yeah.
They were only two in the right mind. I never thought about that.
I know. They weren't wrong.
But think about it. We're going to take this big old piece of metal and fly it out over the ocean. Right?
Sure.
That's no way that would happen.
Yeah.
Now it's commonplace. So what you're talking about, and there's two things. I was talking about this the other day. Nanotechnology and what do they call it between not 1 or 0, fuzzy logic.
Fuzzy logic.
Right? It's not just 1 or 0 binary. There's space in between.
Right.
So when you take nanotechnology and combine it with fuzzy logic and some whiskey, I mean, who knows what you might come up with, right?
You may not even know what you came up
Exactly. Well, I'm the kind of person that I think we're only limited by our budget and our imagination, right?
with. Well, I think we're only limited by our imagination. I think we use the budget as an excuse.
No. I totally agree. And I'll give you an example. There was a guy, this is many years ago, needed $320 million for a project.
Yeah.
And this was many years ago, so that's even more money than it is now. And that guy asked him, where's all that money gonna come from? He goes, I don't know, wherever it's at right now.
Yeah.
So I totally agree with you. The only limits are in our minds. It always brings me up to Roger Bannister, remember, and when he was the first person to break the 4-minute mile, first human. How did he do it? He said, well, I did it in my mind over and over and over, and I'm a big proponent of mental imagery. I was talking about this yesterday to a friend of mine. You visualize it first, right? So he visualized it in his head, and he finally went out there and did it. And he said, it's actually easier than I thought it would be.
Right.
But you know the crazy thing, within 2 years, there was like 37 or 38 people that ran the 4-minute mile, sub 4-minute mile.
I know. It's once you believe things that are impossible, they are impossible. And the moment you stop believing that, you make it happen.
And look at what happened.
Yeah.
And even we got high schoolers these days running under 4 minutes.
I
But
know.
before then, man, the human body would implode if you can't do it.
See, that's the downside of our interconnected world, is people all over the world are being taught what's impossible. You know, before it used to be in isolation.
Well, it was possible. Oh, so they can spread. That's a great observation, Nathan.
You know, so it's not just knowledge. It's not just good knowledge that helps you get places.
It works the
Knowledge
other way.
Works the other way too.
Well, see, I'm the kind of person, you probably know this about me, and I think people that know me, I'm the kind of person, God forbid, we're flying along in the airplane and we crash into the ocean. Mm-hmm. As long as I float to the bottom of the ocean, I got my seatbelt on, I'm like, man, I need to get out of here. Let's see if we can get to the top, right? Because I'm the eternal optimist, because there's a lot of things to be thankful for. And we only, like I say, you're right, we are limited by our brain, because really money is never an object. Mm-hmm. Because if you want something bad enough,
You make it happen.
you'll find, you'll go borrow, do whatever, right? It's all in your desire, right? And so,
Yeah, this guy in New Zealand, you know, he wants to go to space. New Zealand doesn't have a space program.
so what?
He creates a rocket company. New Zealand's the second country in the world to have a private industry that's able to take and put something in orbit.
And I love that. So let me ask you a question. How did you get interested in this? Because I know it's not what you do at work.
Yeah.
So how did you get interested? It was from...
Well, in high school, I was always interested in space. The internet took off, my career went that direction, got busy with kids, you know, space is kind of on the back burner and stuff. And then, you know, got making enough money that it's not an urgent thing. And then SpaceX is doing their amazing stuff. I mean, I think the 2020s are going to be to space exploration what the 1990s were to the internet. And SpaceX's Starship that they're building down there in Boca Chica, Texas, near Brownsville, is the Netscape web browser.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, and see, I love that. See, and I think that's another reason why we reconnected. I always like to learn stuff, right?
Yeah.
And I always, two things I always admire: enthusiasm and talent,
Yeah.
right? Because when I see somebody that's good at something, you know what I automatically think? Number one, good job. Number two, man, it took a lot of time. Time to invest in that, see? So, and with you being interested in that, that kind of helps me, you know, open up my view of that, because I know you, right? And so I always say, everybody I meet is superior to me in some way, right? I can learn something from them, even if it's something not to do, right? I can still learn, right?
Or, yeah.
And so
It's like that light bulb thing. You
Exactly.
know? Let other people
It
try
was
out some of those
successful.
things.
Well, I have in my book, Enhance Your Learning Curve by Leveraging the Experience of Others.
Exactly.
Right? So I always tell people in my consulting, it's okay if you make mistakes while we're working together. Just don't make any of mine. That's
Exactly.
not smart. Okay.
Make
your
new and
own
different.
new ones, right? And we both learn something. But if you just make it, only you learn something from it, right? Because I've already made that mistake, right?
Exactly.
So when you understand that, I have another one in my book. The only real difference in us humans is in our ability to manage our prejudice and control our addictions, right? Some of us are just better than others,
Sure.
right? But we all have issues. We're all screwed up in some way, except, we all have baggage. It's just the enlightened among us choose not to carry it on our shoulder or wear it on our sleeve, right?
Or to make it part of our identity.
Exactly.
That's the key thing.
Exactly. And it's like somehow it's become virtuous, right?
Mm-hmm.
No, I really don't care. I tell people, don't go off and tell people all your problems.
Right.
Half of them don't care, and
Right.
the other half probably think you deserve it. So it's like, they don't care,
Right.
right? So people always, Ronnie, nothing bothers you. How come nothing bothers you? I'm like, well, I think the fact that nothing bothers me bothers a lot of people.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
I have in my book, Drama Fills the Void of the Non-Purposed Life.
Exactly.
That's what they thrive on. I want to thrive on what you're doing, learning, and
Purpose.
expanding your mind and what's out there in 500 years. I've never thought 500 years. But think about it, to kind of put it down into how I can think about it. Just 100 years ago, where we're at, this was all cow pasture. Just 100 years ago, and that's not that long ago, because I'm 57, right? I mean, those old folk used to be them folk. They're fast becoming us folk, right?
Yeah.
We march on, right? And pretty soon, we'll be gone. Somebody else will take this spot, right? Just like the natural cycle of life and death is the ultimate constant. So when you understand that, then you reclaim your power, right? Because you've taken responsibility. Now, what do I need to do?
Right.
And you have the ability to do something that's nobody's ever done. Are you going to do it? I don't know.
Yeah.
But you have the ability, right? So like I said a while ago, ignorance is still an option, but it's no longer a valid excuse.
No
so
longer
you can't,
valid.
You can't use that anymore and still have any credibility, right? So, so was there another question I'm trying to think. I don't want you, this is more about you than me. But.
No, that was about it. Yeah, it's just, I think the next decade is going to be an age of transformation, and that, people won't be able to imagine today. I think if you have an easier time explaining to people in 1990, about orbital mechanics than you would the internet. Likewise, today, you have a lot easier time explaining to people about email than what we're going to be able to do in space in the next 10 years. I think 2030 is going to be completely different than...
And see, that's not that long off.
No, not at all.
I mean, you remember when the year 2000 seemed so far away.
Yeah.
And now we're closer to
Ancient
the year
history.
right now. We're closer to 2050. No, it's 2020, 2021.
Yeah.
We're closer to 2030 than we are to 2000.
That's right. I know.
That's crazy, right?
It is.
And it just goes quick. So that's what I've learned is to slow down.
I know.
Enjoy it.
My son has a quote. He says, years were wasted because hours were not.
Because hours...
Because you didn't waste the hours thinking about what to do, what was important. You were so focused on making every hour count that you lost years.
Right, and
of
that's
your life.
up. Yeah. So it's kids are they're amazing if you listen to them, right? Because they're profound. But that's why I've always said we're in an era now where we need simplicity. Humans cannot thrive on chaos and complexity and desperation and boredom. I mean, if they want to punish somebody in prison, what do they put them in?
I don't know. I guess in society. No, just kidding.
Well, if you're here in Houston, the judge lets them go.
You're getting out.
But it's called what?
It's solitary.
Solitary confinement.
Yeah.
See, because they understand that's a very bad punishment for people,
Sure.
right? And so with us now, we've got the tools, man, and we can start the conversations and we can build those relationships, right? And we can, but the whole goal is to stay in touch. So in case I need something that you have, or I know somebody that needs what you have, right? I can tell you in the last 2 or 3 weeks, I had 2 people, I would have sent them a referral, but I have a photographic memory, I really do. Sometimes I don't use it, but their names slip my, and I'm like, 3 minutes later I thought of it, but it was already gone, that post. I could have tagged them. What if those 2 people had been staying in contact with me?
Wow.
I could have sent them, and there's no telling what what I could have sent them. Maybe nothing, but maybe a lot, right? But most people don't stay in touch. Most people don't stay in touch. So whatever you do, find a system that is simple, built on your personality,
Sure.
that will allow you to be consistent. Simplicity and consistency is much more important than intensity.
Yes.
Remember that.
Yeah.
Simplicity and consistency is much more important than intensity. See, when we look at successful people, what do we see? We just see the success. We don't see the hell that most of them went through to get there, do we?
Right.
And then what do? We start comparing ourselves, and then we get all freaked out, right?
Sure.
Oh, I have in my book, it says, the allure of comparison is the genesis of all delusion and confusion.
That's pretty intense.
Isn't that a great one?
Yeah.
I'll give you a real quick example. When I used to sell homes before I got into it, and it wasn't too far from here, I went into this trailer, and this dude had this plaque where he'd been selling homes the last year. And I think he said it was 4.1 million or 4.3 million, something like that, 4 point something, low fours. And I looked at that, Nathan, and I'm like, 4 million, did a little math, man, how do you spend all that money, right? Well, about probably 4 years later, and I'm looking back historically, right? I had a 5-day period where I sold $4.79 million worth of real estate. So that wasn't a real good comparison for me, was it? Don't go comparing yourself, because that is a good way to limit yourself sometimes, right?
Sure.
Because if they did that, maybe you could do 10 times better, right?
Yeah.
So don't compare. Never compare yourself, man. You got
Work the
everything you
system,
need.
like you said, build the system.
Build the system and
Focus on building the
right,
system.
Focus on the system, but once you get it built, it has to be simple so you're consistent with
Yeah.
it. So if it's real simple, you will be consistent. But get out of that judging mode, right?
Sure.
Man, if I don't do it, I should have done this. I should have. No, don't do that. You just expose it, and instead of you're down here in the chase and convince mode, get up here in the attract and engage mode, and now you're only talking to the people that are ready, right? They're coming to you, right?
Sure.
Waylon Jennings, you remember him? He was the first dude that made $1 million in Nashville, the first dude that made $5 million. He was part of the outlaw movement in 1973, 74 with Willie. Don't y'all think this outlaw bitch done got out of hand? He was a very cool dude. He said something one time, and this is another thing I do. I go and study these historical figures, and I listen to the interviews, and then I make little memes out of their quotes. So I know nobody's ever done it, right? So I'm just, but he said, always make them come to you. If they come to you, you have all the power. If you have to go to them, they have all the power.
Sure.
I'm like, attract and engage is better than chase and convince, right?
Exactly.
So that's human nature, see?
Right.
So go and spend all your time getting so good. I have a meme that says, and I think it's in my book, it says, don't worry too much about not being invited to the party. Go out and spend all your time getting so good at doing what you do and being who you are that you'll have the option of turning them down when they finally do. That's me, man. I'm just working on me. I'm just talking to that dude in the mirror, man. That's my only competition, right?
Absolutely.
And when you my goal is just to be a little bit better, right?
Right, every
So
day.
when I made all that money selling new homes, what does everybody want to know when you're successful?
How'd you do it?
What's your secret, right? What's your secret? Well, I was ready. I waited right till the last year. I'm going to tell you the secret. There ain't no secret. If there is a secret, you're the secret. You're the secret, right? Walk in like you own the place. Treat the place like you own it, right? Stay in touch with people. Add value to their lives, right? Have this new little thing. This is bonus material. Is that okay, Nathan?
Go for it.
When we used to do our classes, we always had bonus material. People would always when they would do the little, what do you call it? Tell us how
Evaluation?
Evaluation. Love the bonus material. And it could be like something totally completely different from the class. Love the bonus. We're always getting that. But so the bonus material. Well, I'll tell you one of the bonus materials I used to say all the time. Never loan anybody any money. Period. It messes things up. Now, if you want to gift people money, there's nothing wrong with that. You gift it, right? But you never loan it. Now, there is one exception to that rule. If you know somebody that you never want to see again, then you can loan them money. How much money is this worth to get this person out of my life? And it turns into an investment at that point. But I can tell you, I've loaned people money in my day, and that's one of the reasons
You haven't
why.
seen them.
You don't see them again, right? So never do that. That's your money tip, okay? Don't loan money.
Don't loan money.
But I don't even remember the other bonus I was going to tell you. But anyway, the whole goal of this thing is to get comfortable with being who you are, okay? And once you're comfortable with being who you are, then people can tell.
Sure.
And then you start to relax. And once you start to relax and be who you are, your attraction power goes way up, right? And then you start attracting the very people that's going to lead you to whoever you need to be. I have on my book, it says, there's no such thing as love in vain or self-made.
Yeah.
We're all connected, man.
All connected.
We're all connected. And so I'm a huge, big believer in karma, right? Karma is only a bitch if you are, right? It also, karma works the other way, right? You plant good, you're going to get good back, right? And so that's what I do. I never walk up thinking, man, what am I going to get out of this? I'm just going to give some value here.
Sure.
Because what's going to happen, even if you don't get paid then, you're going to have somebody call you up. Oh man, I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah. Guess who I ran into? You didn't beat this guy. You know?
And you never know.
He wrote a book too. Let's have him on the show.
Well, I actually did do 18. I'll give Russ Johns a credit. RussJohns.com. We did like 16 or 18 podcasts. But how you doing, young man? As most people that know me know, and I think Nathan, you know this, I was blessed with a lot of things, but a long attention span wasn't one of them. Okay, but that's okay, right? Because we need people like us, right? We're the idea people, right?
Right.
And my daughter-in-law is the same way, extremely talented, but she's 14,000 directions and all the time, right?
Sure.
But that's how she is. That's how she thrives, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But then you have those other people that have to have everything perfect. Oh, we need you. We need you too, right? Kind of balance out people like me.
Right.
So everybody has talent. Everybody has their thing. So let's celebrate that, right? Whatever your thing is, man, and you get good at it. Right, I was talking to a lady. Think about it. You don't want to mow your lawn or clean your pool? Hire somebody to do it that loves doing it. So not only are they taking that job away from you, now they're doing something that really makes them feel good and getting paid for it.
Absolutely.
Wow, that's a great thing, isn't it?
It is.
Other than that, what else, Mr.
That's
Nathan?
pretty much it.
It's very cool that you did this, and I'm very proud of you. And I'm going to start talking about you and sending you some people.
That'd be fantastic.
Because I know a bunch of cool people.
I need to know.
How many more do you need?
Like
1,300?
1,000. Yeah, 1,300.
I saw the video. I think that's cool, though.
Well, cool. Well, thank you so much.
RonaldWilshire.com.